Good day and welcome back. So this is it. This is the last installment of the Eagle 2 build, and it's been quite an adventure. In this one, we're going to go over doing the transfers, the weathering, the final assembly, and then the overall look at it at the end, how I display it, and that kind of thing. I'll give you my thoughts there at the end of it as we talk about the picture, just before we go into the pictures and stuff. But I could sit here and talk to you for a while, or you can go ahead and see what it did. So let's just go ahead and cut to that. All right, so let's take a look at the decal sheet. The transfers that I got, I went ahead and I got the upgrade sheet for all the extras, and these are the ones. You have 4 sheets specifically for each of the Eagle versions, and I haven't looked in here yet, but it's supposed to be pretty cool. So let's go ahead and open these out. And yeah, they look really nice. So now this is what a lot of the what made all the detail in the Eagle was all the little markings all over the place. So you can see this sheet's for Eagle 1. This is the sheet for the Rescue Eagle. And it has some of these panels that are shaded and faded. And this tells you where they go. It's nice that they're broken up that way. This one is for Eagle 2, and this is for Eagle 2 with the regular pod. It's got the markings, and again, it tells you where these go. So they're broken up according to the sheet. Now this is the one that matters to me, and again, this is the one for the lab pod. And so these are for the ends of the pod, the outrigger top, bottom, the end. Okay. So now let's take a look and see. So I'm thinking I'm going to be having to, looks like this is specifically for the pod, which means I'm going to need to mix those with the other transfer sheets. So let's take a look at this, see what this instruction sheet tells us. So, all right. So here we go. So in order to do Eagle 2, what I do have is this sheet is for the pod itself. So it's for this. None of these go on the actual Eagle. So what I need to do is, not only do I need to do these on the pod, but then I need to also follow these and put these for Eagle 2 on the main Eagle assembly. Yay, it's going to be like putting together an F4. But it looks pretty straightforward. So you have, and these will go along with others. So it looks like you have extra kits or extra details for so it looks like these go in addition to the other transfers that actually come with the Eagle. So you have these transfer pieces too that actually go for the rest of the Eagle. So there's 3 sheets I'll get to do. That's exciting. That's exciting. All the transfers look pretty clean and sharp, so not worried about that at all. So if I flip this over, those who are actually interested in this, these are the transfers that go for the Eagle transporter and the rescue pod as well. So, all right, we are going to go ahead and get cracked in on this. Now let's take a look and see what we got to do. I think I'm going to start with, actually, I know I'm going to start with the main transfers. And then I will move to the Eagle 2 transfers for all the shoulders and all of the, I will skip the passenger ones because I don't need to worry about it. So basically I've got to deal with all these guys, right? And then I will move on to the transfers for the pod. All right, here we go. So I didn't film all of the putting on the transfers because it's just so much. Just the only thing I'll call out is these are very thin and flimsy, so you want to be careful when you're applying them, and just be smooth. The ones that are the worst are the ones on those door ends. Those things are just a bit of a pain to finagle around, but if you're patient, you can get them in place. It really isn't difficult. It just is, putting on transfers and be patient. Once all the transfers were put on, then it was time to do the weathering. Now again, remember, my purpose here, my focus is light, right? I could really weather the heck out of this, but I don't want to overdo it. So what I'm trying to do is just highlight these little lines of areas of interest. So to highlight shadows, give fake increase shadows where they need to be. And all it is literally just, it's a pin wash. And some places a little heavier, some places a little lighter. Just go in around different areas. Some places I'd think would be a little bit dirtier. I'd want to make it a little bit darker, but I really don't grime this thing up. It's really, all it's doing is accenting the panel lines, right? Here on the pods, it is really subtle, but it does make a big difference, at least to my eye, when it's done. You don't notice the panel wash because it's so subtle, but you do see the panels that you wouldn't necessarily see as you're doing it. So that was, I really felt that added a good bit to the model without being overboard. The other thing I did do is I wanted to highlight these areas where the RCTs would be, and what I did is I went back and I hit it with white to just sort of fade out as if they had been bleached or burnt or discolored by the RCTs, and I just took white oil paint, dotted it, and then blended it just like you do any other. It's like a dot filter, right? I pretty much just treated it like a filter, and you can see here how that ends up being. It gives this faded sort of reverse scorched look. Just it blends it, right? It gives it a bit of a weathered, used, faded look, and that it adds the interest, right? And it gives it kind of the look of use, which is, again, what I was after when I was doing this. And I was pretty content with the way it ended up looking overall as in the unit. Now for doing the actual weathering inside the nozzles, this was pretty straightforward also. All I did was I dabbed black oil paint in there near the edge. Now remember, there's the baffles that go underneath this spot. So then I just stroked them, from in to out, and that gave these scoring streaks that went through them all. And I really didn't worry about what was going to be showing underneath the baffles, because those baffles are going to hide all the ugliness down in. But it gives a nice little mark to the inside of the bells when they're done. And then I just get my hands on the baffles and I just score them up as well. And I'm really not going super heavy. I'm not making them black. I'm just giving a bit of scoring to, again, just adding interest, right? And that's the whole point, at least from my perspective. With that done, now it's time to move on to putting this thing together. Now remember, I need to be careful about the way the upper cage goes on to the two end pieces. So that's the first part. I start with the back piece here because we know that it is. Now remember, the markings, the interesting thing about the markings on this is the orange, there's an orange bar at the front. You can see it right there to the left. That goes to the front, and then the black goes to the back. So first thing I do is I go ahead and put the back one in because we know that those pieces are in right. Now I go ahead and I grab my clippers and I take off all these locating pins because, again, remember, I got them backwards. So now what we'll do is I will go ahead and get the pod, slide the pod in here, and then put that piece in place. And you can tell that I did this out of a different sequence, but it is what it is. So once I located that using the pod, went back, hit it with the Tamiya Super Thin, and this is the extra fast, because it's a little bit hotter and it sets up quicker. With that, it was time to put the beak together. So I'd already put in the glass, and I used crystal clear as the glue, and it works out fine once that was done. Then it was just a matter of sliding in the cockpit and putting it in. Now the reality is you don't see a lot of this unless you're like right up to the window looking. But again, this is what I wanted to see, and that's what I had. Now it fits a little snug because of the pieces and the way the cockpit fits in there. If I didn't have the cockpit in there, this would just click right in and be easy. So I have to put a little pressure on this, and again, I'm using the Tamiya Extra Fast because it seals up that gap. And with a little bit of extra pressure, I just work my way around. I start in a corner and just walk around, and I get it done. With that done, we put it on, we put the engine, main motor piece on, and then get to the landing gear. I haven't put the nozzles on yet. We'll get to those. Again, I've already got the spring in place, and then it's just a matter of clipping this in, make sure your orientation is right. And then the way these are done, these actually fit fairly well. You do need to sand the tops or the places where these join down so that there's no gap. But if you do that, these clip in very well, and they fit pretty much exactly the way you need to. Once I get them in place, I go back and I hit them with some Tamiya Extra Thin. Yes, I know there are some seams still visible at the bottom of the landing pads. They won't be visible on the base, and I'm okay with that. It was just too much of a pain, not worth the time and effort for what I needed to do. And so we just walk around with Tamiya Extra Thin, glue that in, then flip it over and let it rest on there just to settle in. After that, it was time to put on the nozzles, and here I actually needed tweezers because I couldn't handle those, my big meat hooks of fingers. But I walk around, and you can actually see that white fading on the panel too, because I think it actually adds interest to it. Last piece here is putting in the pod. Once I get this pod on, this was sort of the final piece, like putting on the ship's bell. It's a little bit fiddly because I had to drill out those holes, and getting the screw put in, I again needed to employ tweezers. But once I got it put in, I could just push in with the tweezers and then a little bit of pressure with the screwdriver, and it holds it down. Yes, I did paint the screws because I don't like that. Don't like making them look all silvery and stuff. So once I did that, the Eagle was pretty close to done. Last thing was to get the base done. And I started with a piece of Sintra, covered it up with some epoxy sculpt, and just got a nice not flat little rolling landscape kind of thing. Hit it with some earth color acrylic paint, then just did basic basing, train model stuff, some standing grass of different colors, painted it, gave it a little bit of different shading just to give it some interest. And then once I got that in place, it actually worked really well. I had got the astronaut painted, got it in, and I was pretty content. And with that, the Eagle is done. Yeah, like 12-year-old me is just like beside myself with happy. The Eagle, especially of this scale, is one of those things that I've wanted to have in my hands for, I don't know, since I was, like I said, 10, 12, less. And just to be able to put this together was a nice trip down nostalgia. The build was not difficult. It was a little fiddly, but it was a patient build. And I really like the result. So I'm going to fiddle with the camera here just a little bit so I can get some different looks on it. I will, as always, put a bit of better imagery up at the tail end of this. This will give you something of a look of what this thing looks like live. It's not small, and I've got a couple of I have a nice place set aside for it to go in my shop. Um, but yeah, this was a very entertaining project to do, and one that I am happy to have done. Like I said, the spine booster was a little bit of a challenge in of itself. I think the thing that was one of the more patient moments was having to deal with all of the transfers. Not that there were a lot, which there were, but that wasn't really the driver. What was difficult with those was the how resilient they were not. Right? They kind of came apart very easily. But there we go. So a little bit of sound issue there. But there we go. That is the last of the Eagle 2 Space 1999 with spine booster build. Like I said, 12-year-old me is extremely excited. Modeler me was content with the work. It was fun. I hope this series was useful, entertaining at least. Leave comments down below. I'm happy to hear them. I'd love to have some nice positive interaction. So here's some pictures, and until next time, happy modeling.